So, hi guys, how have you all been? I've been doing great, and I was secretly working on a quilted version of the kimono cardigan. And I had this painted linen kaftan that I made a few months ago, and I never really knew what to do with it. So I ended up quilting it. I didn't use like a big recycled quilt, so I actually made every piece step by step. And Millie wasn't so happy about me working all night and took one of the pattern pieces. Anyway, after a few hours, I had it all together. And let's get started now with the pockets. So first things first, we want to bind the top edge of each pocket bag with bias tape, so we don't have to make a double fold. We can just do a single fold. And I've made a little pocket ironing guide for this purpose. I was not really checking my own instructions, so I actually folded all of the sides. But then again, check the tutorial. You just need to fold one of the verticals because one of them falls to the side seam. Anyway, first things first, we want to fold the top edge now. There's a 4 cm that we can fold plus the 1 cm for the bias tape, and we edge stitch that from the inside. Once that top edge is done and we have the other edges pre-ironed, we pin it in place, and then we can edge stitch now from the side seam. First the bottom edge, slowly but surely. The edge stitch has to be nice because this one is visible. And then I pivot the corner, slowly and surely again, going all the way up. And now I will speed it up a bit. I'm going to do 3 little stitches, and then I'm going to top stitch right next to the edge stitch all the way back to the side. And I do it for both pockets, and now they're really nicely fixed to the front. And I can continue to the shoulder seams. So for the shoulders, I want to do another flat felt seam. So let's flip that because I want to go left side on left side. So I'm going to do the flat felling basically on the right side, on the visible side. Now I stitch that with 5/8 of an inch, 1.5 cm, and I'm ironing it all open. Now I want to cut the seam allowance of the back panel shorter to about half. And then I want to unpick the seam allowance of the front panel and remove the padding and the lining part. So I just keep the nice linen. And once that's done, I can fold now the long linen seam allowance that is 1.5 cm nicely over the short seam allowance, which is kind of half of this. And a little bit slower now for the other side. So I'm folding the long seam allowance from the front first over the back, and then I will tuck it in and pin it in place, kind of under the little short seam allowance that I cut. This takes a while because it's a lot of like volume there, so I want to get it nice. And the good thing about flat felt seams is that they will sort of blend into the whole quilt look and feel, so they're almost like invisible actually. Just disappears in the pattern. I pin this very well so it all stays where it should. Now I've top stitched this now from the outside, from the right side, and I can iron it nicely. Now, next step, the sleeves. So the sleeves are very simple and straightforward, and finish wise I'm just going to stitch with 1.5 cm, 5/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to overlock that as well. Nobody's really going to see it, and I'm not going for reversible style. So I've done this now and brought it back to the machine because I'm also going to top stitch this. So this is done, and I can continue now to the side seams. The side seams, I want to bias bind just to kind of make them not too stiff. This is already quite a lot of material. So stitch it with 1.5 cm, and then I will bias bind it all in one go. I actually gave the underarm point a little snip to release the tension, and then I just kind of bound the tape over this with a little bit of room there so it can move. And now let's flip it inside out, and it's really nice. Once the side seams are stitched, it kind of all falling in place, and this is the perfect moment to give it a quick fitting actually. Or not yet. So let's do the cuffs first. So the sleeves are a bit longer. And same as the pockets, I want to bind the top edge with bias tape, and now I'm gonna pin the short sides together and I will stitch them together. And now I'm gonna slip one cuff over one sleeve there, and I'm lining it up on the raw edges. That's really important. So the bias taped edge is kind of the unstitched one. And I'm aligning it at the side seam of the cuff, side seam of the sleeve, a little bit next to each other though, so it's not all bulking up. And that's already been stitched, so I can flip it back. The other one stitched too, so I flip that back as well. Now I have a nice long sleeve, and let's flip that cuff inside and slightly over the raw edges there, and then you can stitch it with a machine or hand stitch it if you want. Actually, I've just kind of faked it now, and there I go, I fit it. It's so nice, I love it. And little quick game with Millie. The length is now still very long, so let's take care of this and fold the hem in place. First I was thinking I could also bind the edge with bias tape first, but then again, it's actually not that bulky in this case, and I like that volume. So I did a little bit different to the tutorial. I am folding it a little bit more. So I'm folding the hem all the way up to the bottom edge of the pockets there, which is around 8 cm. Pin it all in place, tuck 1 cm in, and then edge stitch from the inside. You can see me using a piece of paper there to kind of work over the bias bound side seams just to get the tension right. And now, next step and last step is the collar. It's a super long piece, so again, one side I've attached bias tape, but I've not bound it, I've just stitched it to it. And then the short edges I've already stitched together, right side on right side. Now, we want to align our short edge now to the bottom edge there, so it's all nice and snug and clean. And then pin the raw edge to the raw edge of the neckline all the way around, right sides on right sides. So this takes a little bit, and it's important to distribute the length and the volume evenly so it's all sitting well. Now that's been stitched, and I can iron it and press it, and then let's flip that collar now and fold it into place. So I'm tugging in the bias tape. Now it looks like what the tape is supposed to be. I didn't want to stitch it earlier because then it will just make it thicker again. So this is totally fine. Now it's a little bit tricky to again distribute the volume and the length properly. So I'm pinning a little bit from this side and from the other side, and I'm sort of evening it out until it all looks nice and well. Especially the back of the neck is a little bit tricky there, so kind of a lot of pinning back and forth until this looks nice. And you can see also that the edges on the bottom hem there really align well. So once that's all pinned in place, a quick edge stitch there from the inside. Again, the stitches somewhat disappear in the quilting, but still this is a visible stitch, so we want to be careful and stitch it nice and neatly. It's always important to take your time and take little breaks in between. Once we start rushing, it usually kind of goes a bit down the drain, I feel. So stitch, 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 all nice and clean, and that's it, I'm done. So a little bit of cleaning up, a couple of threads, let's press it into shape, and now let's take the coat to the lake. Yeah, so that's me. I really like it. I'm also wearing the lazy pants. I love them. They're my favorite pair, and it's a little bit colder, so great for this jacket.